How do you do? I'm pretty good. Nice to meet you. Let me check if this is recording. Oh, what do you guess it is? It is recording, guys. How about the movie of your life? How's that recording for you? Is the sound in? Are you like paying attention to the sounds? Is what I'm meaning there. It's a bit like a poem, wasn't it? I've been really getting into poems. That's what you find here on Archie's Aroma podcast. Welcome, Archie's Aroma podcast. Congratulations to me, I actually remembered to plug the microphone in. Isn't it strange? I'm sitting here in a room where I don't usually talk to other people. What I meant to say was I don't usually talk to myself, but I actually do that a lot. But I don't usually talk to myself as if I'm actually talking to someone, like presenting something. So that's it's a little bit strange. It's having me have all these thoughts like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing, and what if my friends see? Oh god, maybe I should hide underneath this pricker. Oh my god, don't look at me. Don't look at me, guys. Stop it. Ah, my eyeballs. I'm digging into them with my fingers. That's what it feels like when you're in a social situation and it's not going well. That's like anxiety. It's like anxiety. That's what it is. It's anxiety. And you're just like, my eyeballs. I'm poking myself in the eye because I think that they don't like me. They don't like me. I think that this isn't going as well as it should. But then the thing is, right? It's going as well as it should, which exactly, because exactly how it is how it should be. Why would it be any other way? There is no reason for it to be any other way. Why should it be any other way? Because you want it to be that way? That's not how the universe works. Just because you want it to be some way doesn't mean it's going to be that way. You want it to be that way, then you're just trying to like change it, and then that's why you get sad and suffer, I think. I think that's about right. Just trying to ease you guys into my abnormal thinking. It's actually, it's pretty natural. I mean, what isn't natural given its circumstances? That was pretty deep. That was good. What isn't natural given its circumstances? You give the circumstances to anything, it's natural. It's only natural when you don't explain the circumstances. And that's what creepy is, when you don't explain the circumstances. Why is he like that? That's creepy. Yeah, that's really good. That's some good hitter-offs. I'm quite proud of this fire. Well, not proud. Well, I guess a little bit proud. I'm quite happy with this fire. Proud isn't exactly a very good trait to have, I think. Just be happy with things. How do you not be proud? You be happy with things, and by being happy with things, you end up not taking credit for them, because you don't need to take credit for them because you're just so happy to be there with them, and you see the impermanence of it. And what I mean by that is you see how it's changing, which isn't really changing at all. It's sort of just how it is at the moment. You see how it is, which is different to how it was a second ago. That doesn't exist anymore. You see how it is, and then you realize that there's nothing you're really being proud of. It's sort of just like something completely separate, because what you were proud of doesn't actually exist anymore. It's sort of just an idea that you're proud, when you can just be happy of it. And then I know personally I've been trying to think of this thing of applying it to then I can be there for others, is what I keep saying. But I don't think it doesn't seem to quite work. I think it's more like what it should be is you're just not there for yourself. Now that sounds bad. But you're actually just not there for you, like your ego self, like the self that compares itself, the self that thinks that it did something, like I fixed a car, therefore this should happen to me. Instead, you can just have I fixed a car, and this is what's happening. My body fixed a car. Body fixed car. This is what's happening. You can still talk like I fixed a car, but like body fixed a car is what it means, right? Right? And therefore this is happening. It's a big thing. This is what's happening. Yeah? I like that. I think I sort of like that. Yeah. Boy. Lots of thinking time today. Bit too much thinking time, I thought. Something I want to touch on in that subject that we just talked about. What was it? It's like expectations or something. Poetry. I'm glad I got this fire here to fill the silence. It sounds pretty cool, eh? Creaking chimney. My dog's just gone to sleep. So I was supposed to have had a good week this week. Got a girlfriend. Generally that's supposed to be a good thing. Well, that is a good thing. It's like an achievement. It's not really an achievement, it's sort of just another thing that's happening that's positive. An achievement would be implying that I'm proud of it. Not really, I'm sort of just happy for what I have. It's bad to say I'm glad that I did what I did, but I'm just not necessarily glad that I did everything that I did. Just grateful for what I do have now. Even the pain. There's a pain between my fingers. There's a cut there from fighting jiu-jitsu. And that's not pleasant. But if I can actually see it for how it is, right now is quite pleasant, quite a lot to be grateful for. And if you apply it to like the worst situations, say the Holocaust, the situation's still always going to be better if you don't have those stories that you're telling yourself, like, I have no one, when you still have someone next to you that's good. I'm not saying you can still be happy in that situation, but I'm saying you can prevent unnecessary suffering, such as being deluded by the fear of the circumstances instead of the actual circumstances themselves. I like that. And of course takes a lot of practice. It's I suppose it's difficult, but not really difficult as in you can do it. It's sort of just, it starts out rare, and then it takes time. With time, sort of an illusion in itself, isn't it? Starts out slow, it starts out rare, and then you can do it more. You remember to do it more. You're just capable of doing it more. So it's not that it becomes easier as if you're doing like some skill like shooting hoops and it becomes easier. It's more so just that it becomes different. It's not like a skill. It's not like a normal skill. Meditation is what I'm talking about. Realizing the reality of what is. It's more of a realizing the reality of what is. So it's not like something that you skill, you're realizing. You can't build the skill of realization. But you can train your mind. You can practice and improve you can be better. Practice in meditation, I don't think is for improving yourself. No, I think it's for realizing right now as being the self you always wanted to improve. It's training your mind, but it's training your mind for instant realization, which I'm starting to realize is a bit more like shooting hoops than I thought. Maybe you'll occasionally get one in that's like golden. Swoosh. And it's like really like a rare one. So I guess it is pretty similar. It just felt different for some reason. This theme of impermanence seems to be coming up a lot in the Buddhism that I've been studying, along with the meditation. It's like the seeing of the impermanence of what is. It's not so much, although this is mentioned, that everything changes. Because everything changes, but if there's nothing for it to change from, is it really changing? Or is it just the way that it is, and it was just never stationary? It was never stagnant water, ever. There was never a time where the water, which is life, experience, whatever, became stagnant enough for little frogs and tadpoles to be born. But in our mind, our attention wanes to stagnant water, where little frogs and tadpoles flourish. These frogs and tadpoles are the ecosystem that our mind creates. It's a story that our mind sets about something. Sort of like perception. It's the story Yes, it is a story. the regret. It's also excitement. I don't think excitement is always positive. Yes, it's a positive, pleasant thing. But it often leads to disappointment and like pain or suffering. Excitement leads us to believe that something is when it is not. It leads us to observe something that is not. A delusion. A bit like a mirage. Although sometimes that mirage isn't actually a mirage. It is water. Actually, no. The outcome is never, ever the same as the prediction of the outcome. Ever. So therefore it is always a mirage. Excitement is never 100% accurate for what it's excited for when that time comes. Well, excitement has us observe a reality that isn't there, as if it was reality right now. I think a better way of thinking about excitement is that it's simply, this was something that Alan Clark said actually, was where I got this idea from. Simply the readying of chemicals for you to get ready for this planned event. And by planned I mean upcoming, for this anticipated event. That's anticipation. What is not okay then is viewing the chemicals as not preparatory. This is fear. This is aversion. Anxiety as being anxiety that is unnecessary. Fear that, as we know, is not a reliable source of crystal ball gazing into the future. It is simply a prediction. Fear is not us. It is simply a prediction. A prediction that arises based on a belief. And what that belief is a vulnerability. My God, this fire is warm. There we go. Excuse me guys, I'm just gonna put a log on this freaking fire. without burning the house down. Sorry, that's kind of annoying. Ah. Alright guys, I've just found a really good example of vulnerability. And vulnerability can go two ways. It can go to the way of fear and aversion, as we discussed, or a vulnerability can just be like everything else. A vulnerability need not be special. However, we have the belief, false belief, that it is special. See, just then, I said something to the camera, something that I've noticed I've been saying, like, to friends recently, as I come up to them and I'm like, oh no, this conversation, this interaction with them, oh no, it's gonna go badly. I gotta do something. My vulnerability being, I'm not sure actually. The fear of the vulnerability, yeah, the need for the conversation to be adequate. Yeah. Well, the need for the conversation to be adequate is my vulnerability. It's the fear, in that can go two ways. It can be the fear of having a conversation that is not adequate. Conversation that goes awkward. Similar to an insecurity. Well, that's what an insecurity is. It's just a vulnerability taken unwisely, unskillfully. As unskillfully, I mean I'm referring to the practice of meditation and realization, that skill, which I suppose now I think about it, is a skill. Whoa, I just had lots of thoughts on topic actually, about vulnerability. Lots of thoughts detailing me trying to say something. Feel the silence, or I can't even remember now. Well, it's really warm. I'm turning around away from the fire. A vulnerability. A need to be something, and you feel you're not. A chink in the armor you feel shouldn't be there, but it is. So therefore, it should be there, given its circumstances, as we discussed. And therefore, there's nothing wrong with it. The insecurity and the vulnerability can go hand in hand, but they need not. An insecurity need not be tied to our vulnerabilities. A vulnerability can simply be realized as simply a vulnerability. What I mean by a vulnerability, because I want to get some point here. I'm actually thinking this through myself. So I don't have the answers, exactly. I definitely don't have all the answers. But I think I'm getting somewhere. A vulnerability is the, if realized as being simply separate from our fears. Everything could be a vulnerability, right? Every flaw, everything that is not perfect about you could be a vulnerability. Well, it is a vulnerability. It's a liability. It's a weak point. Everything that's not perfect about you, it's a liability. Yeah, that's why it's vulnerable. It only becomes problematic when we become fearful. Well, the fearful is always generally there around vulnerabilities because it's liable. It's liable. You know, you gotta be careful of these things. Generally speaking, I think that's pretty wise evolution, right? It's just when this vulnerability is and the fear of the vulnerability, is taken as being something that we produced, the belief of it being bad arises. And that's when you become, that's when your state of mind shifts to being fearful. Or if not fearful, well, you would still be fearful, but you could be angry there. That something isn't going the way it should. When it's really always going the way it should, because it's got every reason to go the way it is. It's just that we think that there's some vulnerability that shouldn't be there. It shouldn't go that way. No. And we think it shouldn't go that way because we don't realize that the fear isn't real. And by real, I mean our thought that the fear is part of us. Our sense of self. Our self. That's why we think that it shouldn't be there. Because we think we have conscious control over it. When fear simply arises, but it also simply isn't part of us. It's just a passing aroma of sensation throughout the body. Not even passing. It is simply aroma throughout the body. Poignancies of fear, I believe I'm talking about. Similar to levels of fear. But I think poignant makes it better. Because there's no step function of fear. It simply is just poignant, or not. It's fluid. That's what I mean. It's ever changing, but from nothing. Nothing has it changed, I mean. So we have this vulnerability, and we see it as, and we see the fear around the vulnerability, but we don't recognize that fear is just fear, and therefore, and then the fear resides as our state of mind. Instead of just something that is appearing however it appears, with completely justifiable reasons for it being so. Exact reason for it being so. Complete, comprehensible reason for it being so. Because that's how it is. And that cannot not be okay. Because what would be okay? Then what we think would be okay is what we are taught would be okay. We are taught that it would be okay if you just be a little better. Or no. Maybe the world could just be a little better. Get the things and stuff and do the things. Be a little better. But the vulnerability doesn't go away. You're still unhappy when you get the thing. And because the vulnerability doesn't go away, neither does our attachment to the fear of the vulnerability. What could a vulnerability be? Feelings not being good enough. Taught to us in a time where we believed it to be true when it was false. The vulnerability that you're not enough, that you're not lovable, that they will leave if you don't X. Something doesn't go perfect, bad will happen. That is true. And therefore, it is also vulnerable. It is also a vulnerability. It's liable, it's liable to not go right. And what's wrong with that? What's the problem with it not going right? The problem we think is there, we believe is there, it comes from our association with fear. Our identification with fear as being something that we made. Our Yeah. Fear will arise because of shame. And shame arises because it was taught to arise. It was taught to arise from your usual teaching methods of no, hey, stop. Do it differently. No, bad. Why am I bad? Bad. You should know you're bad. Why are you bad? You're bad. Vulnerability. Bad. You don't get your needs met because of this vulnerability. That's why the fear arises, because the shame arises, because you want to get rid of it. So you can get your needs met and generally be loved by whoever was teaching you. That's why the fear arises anyway, and then the meditation comes in handy because you can realize that the fear is just fear and not something that you've made. You're simply just an observation of everything that's happening. That's appearing. Well, it's happening, but it's happening. It's like appearing through your conscious view of everything. And it doesn't have to be any story that you tell it to be. It simply is innately at peace as it is. Doesn't need to be changed. And that's where suffering comes. When we see that when we don't see, we don't observe, we don't realize the undercurrent of everything that is and pushing it around, we think we get stuck in the stagnant mirages in our mind. We get stuck in the stagnant mirages in our mind. I'm going to write a poem. Maybe I could have just said that normally. But oh no, I think I've been taught not to say it like that. That would be gay. Writing a poem? Who do you think you are? Poet. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. You should get rid of that. Personally, I think now it's fine, but then I got the belief and I kind of forget the belief. I sort of like don't realize it. It's not like you forget it, you sort of just like, where did it go? Didn't realize. Whoops. So meditation is just noticing. The ability to notice what is, and then you can see that it's nothing worse than it actually is. And it's also nothing better than it actually is. Because that's something that's good, because if you thought it was better than it actually is, it's delusion. But that's not necessarily bad. Matrix doesn't seem too bad for the people in it. However, if you thought it was better than it actually is, something always won't line up. Because it's not real. Something always won't line up. Something is always destined to flow to pain, to severe pain, because thinking that something is better than it actually is is unwise, because it's unskillful in realizing what it actually is. It's unwise because it's unrealized. And therefore you can't act. You're acting under the enchantment of a story, thinking that it is better than it actually is. stress, it'd be there. It do be there. It'd be there. It'd be there. Shall you try to remove it? Good luck to you. For that will only make its might grow stronger. But unidentify with it. And from that, one is awakened to the possibilities of reality. Today, I realized something. Just then I realized the fear of saying this. I also realized that I was pushing away the stress to do stuff with the day. That it had to be a certain way. Perhaps it could be a different way to the way that it is. For the way that it is bears unpleasantness. For the way that it is leaves me parched, says the story bird. Unrealized is that the way that it is too lends itself for bodhicitta, the growth of all. Yes, it may be one way, but no, it may not be another. The way thought, the way believed of it being must one way. Deep work, I thought. Deep work is the way for salvation, I thought. This belief becoming a totality on my mind. The present innately wasn't good enough. It must change. Instead of simply being it, which is partly stress. It need not be any other way, for the way that it is has an infinity of reason to be.